strong recovery effort. And then we'll be able to weigh all the pieces and all the progress on revenue and expenses in the current year and the capital plan and the recovery and make a good decision for next year.
Rich is next, and then you're back.
So, I mean, people have mentioned that you want to basically relook at everything about expenses, given yesterday's presentation. Eden, you and I talked about this probably, I don't know, over the past month or so, that if there's something in the budget there that's a spend, and you determine that it's not necessary, not a wise use of township monies, you won't spend it.
Right.
During the year. So if during the year, because people traveling busy, if we pass the budget, which we have to at the end of this year, if you find something in there as time goes on that Eden should take a look at to see is it necessary or not, you'd be open to that.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so even though we're passing it, we have to pass the budget
Yeah, you have
with some things in there. You have time to take a look at it during the year if it has.
It doesn't mean
if
that we're
hasn't been
spending
spent.
it just because it's
Okay.
budget.
So, and
reasonable accounting of expected expenditures and revenues, things subject to change.
yeah, and so if there's something you find, even though we're a bit compressed,
Your
there's a
motto,
lot.
you write down and put on the website.
Yeah.
It's really the quote from the law.
Sorry.
I think I quoted
Gentleman in the back is next.
It is.
I think ultimately we have little to zero confidence in what you guys going forward. If we could lose the 3.2 million and not have a problem, then we were overtaxed to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you were screwing up before if you were overtaxing us. And that was mismanaged and lost, and apparently we could do without it. So it's like, how do we get that confidence in you guys knowing what you're doing again?
Yeah, so I think we need to fully understand what fund the alleged theft came from. The suspicion is that it comes from open space, which is supported by an EIT, which no elected officials put in
Not
place. So that's my understanding. So I think we need more information.
We couldn't go without it, and we weren't being, I mean, I can't speak every dollar, but in general, we weren't being overtaxed, and our reserves were not too high. The view that the reserves were too high for a very long time, in certain places they might have been, but spending to the reserves we have now is not appropriate. The reporting was not done and available to show the rapid use of funds over the last couple of years.
You heard me say yesterday that the reports that were provided were manipulated, so it's, yeah.
What
It
would
is
your
challenging.
reserve target be?
It's a good question. We need a good understanding of our capital first, right? Would you
That's
agree
part of
with
the problem.
that? I'm not, I mean, sure, it's not up to me, no problem.
Is that okay? Yes.
Thank you.
So I have a suggestion. So my suggestion is that we allow the professionals on our staff the opportunity to go through these problems and determine exactly what we can and cannot spend. We know that for 2020, we have revenues coming in that will cover expenses. So it's not a serious problem. We're not going to go down the tubes. And we also know that we have a reserve. What we don't have is a capital plan, okay? And we don't have everything sorted out. That's when we should make the decision, if necessary, to cut other expenses. Not now when we don't have the information, and we may simply cut a program and may actually, as part of doing that, get more costs later because we didn't use that program to solve some problem. Or we didn't make some kind of progress in, let's say, economic development. So there's no emergency, even though we've discovered that there's a $3.2 million theft. It's not an emergency today to vastly cut expenses. As you've heard, we cut expenses, but we cut expenses to bring down the deficit spending and bring it in line with the revenues. That's been done.
Okay.
So there's no more bleeding in that area. We will determine, these guys will determine in the next 6 months, 9 months, certainly within the year, okay, what the real situation is, and then we can make a decision, if necessary, to cut anything in order to bring us in line, if that's necessary. But there's no reason to rush to that judgment today, because yesterday you heard that the amount was $3.2 million.
I just
Now, I want to respond to you in the back. The fact is that we had,
We don't want to share ourselves.
over a long period of time, money was accumulated by a previous administration. We were told when we started to get audits, which is something that we brought in, that we had way too much money in those reserves and we needed to spend them down. And that's what we were doing, and that's what we were using to fund our police force. And we went through every year and we looked at the amounts of those reserves, what it was costing to bring in the police force, and we were spending it down. And we reached a point about 2 years ago, I think it was, and we were very adamant, we can't go below this line. And I forget what it was, but it was a recommended number based on what it would cost to maintain the operations of the township if all of our money stopped, which of course it wouldn't, but if all the money stopped. And I believe it was $2.5 million. So we figured our budget based on whatever that number was, which I'm telling you, I think I remember correctly. But it was somewhere in that range, what we spent down to. What we didn't know was that that money was being spent down faster than what it cost for the police. Because on that $750,000 that I told you about yesterday, all of which were rubber stamped by me, with my name, not by me, but with my name, that money came out of the general operating fund, went into, allegedly, the private Capital One account, and then the money was taken, so that was there. Then money was taken out of that reserve fund and went back into the general operating fund. Now, it's a whole lot more than that, but that is the pattern of what was going on. So how much is where, and where did that money come from for the reserves, and was that for the police? No, it wasn't. It was for some other improper reason. But we thought we had spent it down because that's the numbers that we had. And those numbers were false. But I can't write those numbers up. I can't make them up. Maybe you people can, but I'm not an accountant, and I wasn't hired to be an accountant. That's the number that we had based on the people that we received when we came here, were here and operating, and we had every reason to believe that they were doing what they were supposed to be doing. And we had no indications that it was not correct. And those were the numbers we had, and we did it responsibly. Little did we know. We were trying to find out what was going on. We were watching it. But, you know, it was shuck and jive, and where's the P?
I don't even want to talk about that.
I can't believe what you just said either.
even talk about that.
I'm sorry?
I can't talk about that. There's no sense in talking about this anymore because I think
No, a reason I'm talking about is because the question was, how did we get to where we were, and you can't trust the
I'm
numbers?
trying to
Well, that's
get, I'm
correct,
trying
you
to,
can't.
well, you're answering something maybe he was asking. I
That's
want
right,
us to
I'm
get us
answering what
our
he
money
asked.
back. And I want you to show us how you're gonna get that money back, because we're not gonna get it all back. And waiting a year is wasting a year. And we've got other things coming down the road that are gonna cost us money, that we are gonna need that money. And I get concerned when you said we had over reserves and now we spent them down. You should have returned tax monies to us then. If you had over reserves, that tax money ought to have come back to us.
Yeah,
Instead of raising taxes.
that's, the way that you explained the over reserves was that you were watching that. Is that what you said? You were watching how that was to be spent down? Okay? That's inconceivable to me that that's how you handled that. You spent it to get it within the levels that it should be at, because it was too high of reserves, so you spent it on a police department and all these type of things, without, and you're saying you were responsible for watching it go down, all right? But
you were elected to watch those funds and those numbers, and you said that you
Well,
did spend it because you had it, but you didn't know what was there. You were spending money that you admitted, I think in your statement, if I understood you correctly, that you spent it and it wasn't there.
No, the money was there.
I-
The money was there. That's, I didn't say that it wasn't. I said that our accountant told us that that should be spent on. You tell me that I should give it back to you, and then I can tax you so that I can pay for the police force that we all agree we should have. So, I don't know, that's sort of like the $900 sign. I should pay myself so that I can pay myself. No, we had the money, and that's what we were trying to take care of, was a municipal decision that had been made. It was started before we were here. We were following up, but augmenting it.
Can I clarify what he's saying? There were at least two initiatives that I know of that were big. They might not have been the only, but
No,
Advancing
you don't need to respond,
I
because
mean,
he doesn't care, he's
advancing
not
the
being
police
responsible,
department.
he's not listening to your response on his behalf. You don't need to answer it, it's quite fine, really, it's.
I want to say, there was a lot of public discussion about expanding the police department. So a lot of those reserves at one point, not in the recent years of the fraud, but back when the police department was growing, that was a conscious use of reserves for a municipal initiative that was well supported. That was one thing. The other thing is we specifically have an open space earned income tax passed by referendum that supports conservation in the township. That's why it's there. For a while, it was not being spent, and that was where some of the reserves were. So it was actually utilizing the money for the purpose that it was being taxed for in the open space case. I'm sure there's other examples. I'm not trying to defend. I just know that those were two community-supported initiatives that were reasons why there was spending. So there may be some people that don't support those initiatives, but that was what they were elected based on.
I think there was a question here.
Yes. Thank you.
Bottom line, do any of you know if there's any money left in the reserve today? Do you have?
Yes.
Do you
Yes,
know-
yes, we know the cash. We know the
Okay.
cash in all of our bank accounts. That's what we spoke about earlier.
Okay,
I know the cash that we have. What I don't know is if it's in the right buckets, in the right funds.
okay.
So I don't know if it belongs to open space or sewer or general fund or EMS.
All right, so you don't have a bottom line knowledge right this minute of how much is actually in reserve?
We know the total of
We
all
know
the
the
funds.
total across all the township.
Yeah, all of the funds are about 4
Oh,
million.
it's 4 million, okay. Well, since it came up about the police department, and I know that there was a large sum of money in reserve before any of you were involved in the township, it seems kind of strange to me that you would come in and say that you're gonna take all that money and build a bigger police force. And I hear that there were people who were in favor of that. But there had been also talk of going together with another municipality and sharing police and doing it in that respect. The other thing was, then you raised our taxes. We were never notified in our part of the township on Captain Robinson and all of Hartfeld that's in this township. We didn't get notified that you were going to raise taxes and that was to be
Nobody did, you
discussed.
got the bill in the mail, to be
Yeah,
honest
we
with
get
you.
the bill
We
in the
got the
mail,
bill in the
sure,
mail
yeah.
afterwards.
Correct.
But isn't that a law that you have to?
We advertise it in the newspaper,
The
general
bud-
circulation.
the budget,
all set.
there's a budget, there's a tax
Right.
ordinance. Those things get advertised as required by
Advertised
law.
in a newspaper.
That's what the law
We
says.
sent out postcards, we
No, we
communicated.
never got a postcard, and that's what I had heard one of you say, I think it was you, Scudder, before, that you sent out postcards.
We did.
None of our neighbors, nor we, got a postcard.
So I get this
I
comment.
read it in the paper.
So being in the field, Amy and I experience and hear of other people in our positions who have these conversations with their community a lot. So I always ask this question: how would you like to be notified if your elected board was, and you weren't here, right? And if your elected board was considering a tax increase, how would you like to be notified?
Email or a postcard.
Okay, what if we don't have your email? And sending a postcard to the whole township is like $5,000. I mean, I'm just telling you, like it's expensive, and
I did
they're
it in my
alleging, and obviously I wasn't here.
township, so
They're
I'm used to
alleging,
it that way.
they're alleging that they sent a postcard and you're saying you didn't receive it. I wasn't here and I'm not
No,
gonna
I
speak
know
to
you
it.
weren't. I
But-
know that.
So, but I always ask, how would you like to? So you said email. Are you on the township email?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Is everyone else?
So
Everyone
people
is on-
sitting right where you are, when we said this, they said, and we showed them the postcard. And they said, oh, we got that, but we thought that was from a used car salesman, and we threw it away.
I know when I get something from the township that it's not from a used car sale.
I'm just telling
I didn't
you
get it.
that they said the same thing, that they didn't get it. And then they said, oh, yes, we did get it, we threw it away.
Okay, well, there are
So
people
I'm not saying you said
who
that.
don't know what's going on, but I can guarantee you, when it has to do with the township I'm living in, I know what's going on or want to know what's going on.
Especially as a former
I believe
mayor.
that, I know that.
So we've got about 1,200 people, I think, Michael, on our email list. Is that about right? And we have about 3,000 homes, about 9,000 residents. There's a lot of people who are not on the email list.
I can believe that.
So I would ask all of you to do us a favor, because I know I can speak for the board, and definitely Amy and I, and how we've approached our careers to this point. We want the public. I wish our budget hearings were as large as the meeting last night. That would be great. Like, let's get the electorate in here and have a conversation. What are we doing, with taxpayer money?
Right.
We appreciate that you pay taxes. We're employed by this. I mean, we love this kind of stuff. Tell us what you want to do and we'll help you make it happen. That's what we're here for. So do us a favor and tell all your neighbors, your friends, anyone, the Facebook people, anyone on social media, let's get them on the email list so we can get them information. And we need your help, because I'm not going to see all 9,000 of them anytime soon. So help us out with that.
I will tell those in my community of
Great.
Hartford.
Let's make it very clear on the front page of our website how to do that over the next few days if you guys are going to go out and spread the word. That would be really good. Let's
Well, I'll send an email out
thank you.
because I do that anyway for things that are important.
Great. We
So I will be
appreciate
glad to do that in my community.
that. Thank you. We appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
You had comments, sir?
Yeah, so the police force has been a sore subject with me for a long time. When I moved here in 2003, we had a combined police force with the borough. You look at that.
No, we never.
Yes, we did.
No, we did not.
Yes, we
State
did.
police covered.
We did not.
We got police service from the borough.
When necessary for special events, we
Yeah.
contracted with the borough to cover certain special events at certain times at parks or events. There was never a borough patrols the township agreement. We had service from the state
Okay.
police.
I have to disagree with you, sir, because I got a speeding ticket from a borough cop on the road here in 2003.
You should appeal it.
So don't tell me we weren't getting services from the borough, all right? Now,
We were not.
and then,
I'm not telling you every bit, your neighbors are telling you.
Never getting those services.
but,
Neighbors are telling
okay,
you.
and then we had this malfeasance from the supervisors with the deputy dog, one policeman, who came from the borough. Everybody here understands all that nonsense that went on,
Yes.
okay?
We do.
So I've been unhappy with that since the very beginning. Now we've got a police force that's growing, and you're trying to make it into a metropolitan police force. When you,
What? Whoa, I'm
Coming
sorry. I was explaining something. I was explaining the chief situation to Amy. I missed what you said. Did you say we're building a metropolitan police
yeah,
department?
That's what
you're
he
trying to
said.
build a metropolitan police force.
Exactly what he said.
So,
This is news to me.
so,
Yeah, I hear you.
but you look up at that map behind you, and it makes perfect sense that we should have one common police force.
I agree. So in my next meeting with the borough manager, when this is going to come up, you should come with me. And I'm going to tell him, what can we do to cooperate? And Joe Scalise is a great guy. I really enjoyed working with him. Many of you probably know. And I asked the question, I know he does too. How can we work together? I come from that background. In the municipalities that I've worked in, I always say, I came from boroughs, right? And I would say in the township, how can we work together? And we came up with really good, creative, cost-saving ways to do it. So I'm with you. And that is definitely on my agenda.
Well,
Gotta
that
get
should
the
be,
finances sorted out, but
that
it's
should be primary on your agenda, because that's a big ticket item.
We gotta get
So-
financial controls in place.
What- Let me ask, just to clarify, you would like us to partner with other nearby municipalities?
Absolutely, and the one that makes perfect sense is the borough. Look at the map right up there.
Right.
I mean, it just screams the opportunity for efficiency.
I
We
agree
all
with you.
agree with that. Jeff, I think you wanted to add to this discussion.
Yeah, we actually did contract with Kennett Square. It was right around 2007 when Albert McCarthy came over here. And the annual contract came up, and it was the then supervisors, none of these gentlemen were there, said, no, we can do it ourselves cheaper. And that's when they took that under advisement from Albert McCarthy. And they then had one policeman, and I believe they had 2 or 3 by the time these guys were on the board. But you are correct, they were giving you control like 8 hours a day, and I got a ticket too, so I think you're right. I can tell you where it was.
They were never our police. We did not own them. We rented them
That's not what he said. He did say contract.
for a period of time.
And they were cheap.
No, that's what it was.
Absolutely.
Their contract is less favorable now.
Yes, it is, yes.
One quick question. Do we have any coverage from the county police?
No, so the county and Pennsylvania's counties don't provide that. They have a sheriff's department.
That's
Yeah,
different from.
They only have a sheriff's department, which is like a special assignment.
So that's
system.
why we had the state at night before we had our own 24 hour.
Right, so Pennsylvania State Police has a large area or troop that covers this. And so response times here in an emergency can be 45 minutes at times. So it's not quick. Our response times are much.
And pardon, not to belabor the point, but those people up in the far left-hand corner?
Yeah.
What's the response time to them?
For us, that's a good question.
Yes,
Sergeant,
Sergeant.
Sergeant, it's up to you now. What's our response time here?
Well, it all depends well, wait a second, that's a fair question. All right, so you were talking about your police department here. So majority of your shifts are one officer, okay? So if there's 2 out, and what we try to do, there's a 6A to 6P, there's a 6P to 6A, and then you have a supervisor that works 2P to 2A. Okay, so depending on the factor of, number one, if we have 2 cars out or do we have 1 car out, right? So the longest response time, let's say from the township building to like 41 and 7, we have right there at the Delaware line. That's pretty much the farthest A to B spot it could be 8 to 10 minutes length of siren.
That's
If
down
it-
here.
Correct. And then going from the borough, it depends on your response time. So if I'm coming from here, I'm gonna go right down the Rosedale to the borough. If I'm on Baltimore Pike, I'm just gonna follow it up to 82 and in. So are you asking, are those 45-minute responses? No. They're not the state police response times. Our longest response time, and I will tell you, I spent 20 years in Coatesville, my longest response time was like a minute. So when I got here and I was traveling like 5-6 minutes, I was like, holy moly, I'm like really late to get in a call. But here, I noticed because we are more spread out, you got 16 square miles, but the state police are on an average much longer than 15 minutes, 2:45. So 8 to 12 minutes, 12 minutes routine, 8 minutes code 3, but it all depends.
Okay, wait. What is a code 3?
Lights time.
Lights signs, okay. Just anyone didn't know that.
But it also depends on whether you've already on the call,
Well, I
or
mean,
how many calls you have backed up.
that's fair. So, 2018, we had, the average police officer here, there were 6 road police officers, and the amount of calls was, a little over 8,000. So that was just under 1,000 calls for each individual officer. All right, so this place is busy. I mean, you can have 4 or 5 calls stacked, running back and forth. You have major highways through here.
So we're gonna be talking about this over the next couple meetings, actually kind of explaining this. So there's a lot of conversation about policing, which I think is great. It's the most expensive part of our budget, right? So we should talk a lot about it. So we're gonna be talking about this, what our officers do, what kind of calls are they running, what does their shift look like, what are they experiencing in Kennet Township, right? I mean, this is not a rural township, right? It's not the city of Philadelphia, it's not the city of Coatesville. So I want you guys to have an accurate understanding of that. So we're gonna be pulling body cam footage for you guys to watch, and see that. So these are all resources you pay for, taxpayer dollars. So we're gonna be talking a lot about this, so stay tuned.
Yeah, be careful, even because earlier you said it's no longer a rural town, and now you just said it's kind of.
Well, no, I'm setting that up. So I'm setting that up. No, we're a rural township, but we have suburban demands. I mean,
Yes.
we know that, right? There's development happening around the borough. So my point is that you'll be very surprised, I think, of what our police officers go through here. I look forward to those discussions.
All right, so people are leaving. It is 11 o'clock.
2 nights in a row.
I'm
We gotta
sorry?
say, this is great, the time that we're spending together. The topics aren't always great, but it's, being with you guys is fun. This is democracy at work. I mean, this is democracy at work.
It is, that's right, and
This
these
is democracy.
discussions are important.
This is
for-
very
For us and for you to know what we're thinking.
We appreciate that you're here, all of
This
us.
is good.
We
Thank
appreciate
you.
that you're here. So we'll see you on the 30th, right?
Yes.
Yes, right.
That's a commitment now.
I don't know
Motion
if I'll
to-
be able to get my
Is there a
husband.
I move to
There's-
adjourn.
So wait.
No?
We're not done yet.
Oh, he's not done?
No, we're not. So can we have an update on the Hammond question?
The agreement says that this board cannot, based on confidentiality, advise the media, the news, folks like that of the details of the settlement. And since I don't know who everybody is. or
Anyone here with
represents-
the media?
That's not the issue, that's not the issue.
Yeah.
However, if the township is required to disclose the agreement under the right to know law, then that does not qualify as a violation of the confidentiality of the agreement, period. So my advice is that if anybody wants to see the settlement agreement, they submit a right to know request. It's very easy. And I looked earlier in the meeting at the exceptions to the right to know law, and I could find no exception for a fully executed settlement agreement. And that's the way that my advice to the township is to handle this.
If anyone wants to know or wants to see a settlement agreement and wants to know how to file a right to know request, Megan is sitting in the back of the room. She can wave her hand. She is a right to know officer. She will walk you through how to do that process. It's very simple, and we'll email you the settlement agreement.
That's after we paid, we signed the checks.
Yeah, we're not, you gotta sign the agreement.
No, the right to know.
Check.
form.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Right to know form.
Megan, the right to know form's online, isn't it?
Yeah.
The right to know request form, yeah.
It's on our website.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that, and there were a couple other slides left.
Oh, there's more slides left.
Alrighty. So I
You
guess
skipped them
we're-
like the last
I
3
was
meetings.
premature then.
So they did public comment.
Oh
We did that part. Okay, mark your calendars. We've got things coming up here, ladies and gentlemen. So the zoning hearing board case tomorrow. You heard Michael talk about that earlier. There's a couple others in January, so these are important. There's information about all of that on the website, so check that out. Zoning's important, right? Zoning decisions get made and they can be controversial at times. And then the bridge closure for Route 82 and Gillen Road, so that bridge, we need our friends and neighbors to know that. It's gonna be closed, and we are looking into it and how that impacts with other things that the board asked. But as of now, that's expected closure August 2020. It's gonna be approximately 7 months.
Creek Road.
No.
Is that the one?
Roger, bail me out here.
It is?
It is that one.
Oh.
It's gonna
Hale and-
close?
Hale Road and Marshall's Bridge, that's the
Yes.
bridge.
I'm glad we did these slides.
Oh, yeah.
But they replaced the whole thing, it is.
Put it,
Yeah.
We're gonna get any.
put it down here. that there's-
Additional slides.
No,
Yeah.
you should have covered it in the zoning.
Oh, it's
Oh,
87.
yeah. These are things that we go over every.
It's Route 82, which turns into Route 7.
Okay,
Put it
okay.
before here so that when I get to here, we get done.
Okay, so I knew what you meant.
That's
No, 82 goes down, it's
Put
over
it
there.
there.
Okay.
Well,
thank you.
for them,
Because I-
they're
one is-
Hartfeld, they're coming from here, they're
Yeah.
going down 82, which
That's right.
I can't see
stops
what's
at
going
the
on.
turn.
Okay.
No, 82 goes down, is
Down by the creek, Creek Road.
down.
Oh, yeah.
To get Kennett from here, you're gonna go out Sharp Road
Mhm.
to New Garden,
Mhm.
up the hill now.
We can give you the directions after the meeting. Michael, next slide.
Oh, sorry.
I think the next one is just a call to action, right? So we're still in this process of trying to understand, and for me and Amy, who are new to Kennet Township, to learn about Kennet Township, we're really enjoying that process. If you are someone who has an opinion, we want to talk to you. We want to meet with you. You can call us. Let us know what you think about Kennet Township. Let us know what you want us to know. What do you think the priorities should be? How can we work together to achieve Kennet Township's vision? In your opinion, what is Kennet Township's vision, or what should it be? We need your help with that process. So we invite any group, anyone, any individual who wants to meet with us. We would certainly welcome that. We love filling those meetings on the calendars. Okay, so that's all I think. Thank you.
Is that our agenda?
I think that's it.
Now we'll entertain.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? Thank you all very much for your patience and involvement.
They invite me back. Oh, no, I'm staying.